Elizafirst is an infamous FNAF theory that states that Elizabeth Afton died first in the timeline, before the bite victim and before the MCI. It's deeply unpopular, because it requires you to believe that William Afton created Circus Baby and the Funtime animatronics with the ability to lure and kidnap and kill children with no reason. We currently understand William's initial intentions are to explore the ability for souls to possess metal, and become a substance known as Remnant, and to use this technology to bring his youngest son back to life after his death at the hands of the Fredbear animatronic. Elizafirst throws this whole order into disarray, and requires you to explain why William would act this way before his dead kid comes into play. There is some pretty solid evidence for this theory, and I think it's a valid interpretation. Primarily, it answers a few questions about FNAF 4, being why the little girl's room seems to be abandoned and what the bite victim saw that makes him scared of the animatronics. There's never been a definitive answer to where Elizabeth is during the events of FNAF 4, but some claim that the red-haired girl in the playground is meant to represent her. I find this very unlikely, since I doubt that Scott would change her design so drastically between FNAF 4 and Sister Location if they were meant to be the same person, and since she speaks as if she doesn't live with the crying child, and says she will see him at the party instead of at home. In many of the cutscenes, we see the crying child being terrified of the animatronics, as well as of his brother wearing an animatronic head, yet he isn't scared of the plushies of the animatronics. As well as this, we see that Nightmare Fredbear is depicted with a stomach mouth, similar to the one we see on Baby, so he could have merged the two in his mind. As well as this, in Sister Location, we meet the character Ballora, which many believe represent William Afton's absent wife. Ballora has a personalized song, which goes like this.
Why do you hide inside your walls when there is music in my halls? All I see is an empty room, no more joy, an empty tomb.
The line, "No more joy, an empty tomb," is an interesting choice. Assuming that she represents the mother figure of Elizabeth, now Baby, this attitude and clear apathy fits with how a mother might talk about her dead child's room. In the classic book, known as a survival logbook, on pages 82 and 83, we see drawings of Circus Baby and of Bonnie. The drawing of Bonnie resembles one that we can see on the TV in FNAF 4, obviously in much lower detail. And finally, there are implications in other FNAF media that Elizabeth dies first, such as in the novel trilogy and in a non-canon Easter egg appearance in the Into the Pit game, in which she has already been possessed by Elizabeth before the MCI. If we were to accept all of this as true and run with it, we need to come up with some reason for William to turn evil. Or do we? Sure, I agree that the story is better serviced by William having a clear breaking point which leads him down his dark path into becoming the man behind the slaughter, but in reality, we already have plenty of evidence that he's been a terrible guy for a very long time. In everyone's favourite game, Secret of the Mimic, we can find emails left by both William Afton and Henry Emily, most of which seem like innocent back and forths about the different projects that Fazbear contracts Murray's costume manor for. Among these emails is one that is signed by WA, clearly meant to be William Afton. In the email, he is wrapping up details about some kind of buyout of Edwin Murray's company, in which he confirms that Fazbear will now own the entire MCM product catalogue and the land that MCM sits on, but promises not to touch their family home that sits on the same plot. In the secret ending of the game, we can go to this house and crawl through a vent and come out to this. A setup very reminiscent of the bedroom from the gameplay of FNAF 4, with the same closet across from the bed and the same toys strewn around it, but it's not the exact same room. All of this is to say that sometime between the events of Secret of the Mimic and FNAF 4, which is between 1979 and 1983, William moves his family in and puts his young son in the old bedroom of the dead child of Edwin Murray, whose life he in part ruined by bleeding his company dry of staff and funds before buying it out. A man capable of doing this much evil and just moving his family in with seemingly no guilt is not who we assumed William Afton was before his children died. And while it's a bit of a jump from being a shitty capitalist to being a child murderer, it's a much smaller jump than we used to think. So I'll be real, there's some pretty gaping holes in this theory. Sorry Elizafirsters. Firstly, if the crying child's fear of animatronics comes from his sister being killed by one, why the fuck is Michael wearing animatronic masks and scaring him? Since surely he would also be in mourning, and also probably wouldn't choose to put his other sibling into an animatronic mouth after that. Also, since Baby's monologue about when she killed Elizabeth specifically says that she can tell how many children are in a room based on both sound and sight, and she also confirms that nobody saw, so only the Afton family would have known, and I doubt William would be very forthcoming with this information. Ballora's song is also confirmed to be more or less made up by the voice actress for Ballora, and not some massive lore detail, although Ballora still may be based on Mrs. Afton to some extent. Lastly, the image of Bonnie is so loosely similar to the Bonnie in Fredbear and Friends that I don't think it's really a point for or against. It's just Bonnie, with his signature guitar. Needless to say, I'm not an Elizafirst believer, but I do find it interesting, and I intend to look more deeply into it and other theories with similar reputations to make arguments for them.